Welcome back to another episode of Launchpad. And in this episode, we're going to talk all about business coaching, when to engage a business coach, some of the problems that can come up in business that you can get out of with a coach, all that and much more right after this. So guys, as I mentioned in the introduction, we're talking all about business coaching today. There are a lot of people that watch this podcast that have a business, obviously, but only a small minority that would have a business coach or thought about engaging a business coach. So for that reason, we're joined with our special guest, Jason Allender from AMG Business Performance. How are you going?
Good, thanks, Stuart. Tina, how are you?
Yes, and of course, we are, as always, joined by Tina Hay from Puzzle Media. Thanks again, Tina, for co-hosting today.
Thank you. I haven't been on for a couple of weeks, so thank you for having me.
So, Jason, obviously, business coaching for a lot of people in business is not really something that people automatically go, oh, I need a business coach. Most people like, I know what I'm doing. I know my craft. I've started this out of the garage or started from nothing. Business coaching is probably something for somebody else, but not for me. Is that accurate or no?
Yeah, 100%, Stuart. I think it's often a thought process that a lot of people we work with, they even comment the same thing. They said, look, I didn't realize I needed a business coach. I thought business coaching was for a suffering business, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's a pretty good point that it's not something that, you come out of the gates and go, you know what, first thing I'm going to do is get a business coach. So, yeah, there's a bit of a process to it, but yeah, I think spot on.
Do you think that raises an interesting point about timings? Is it better for people to engage a business coach right at the start, at the inception stage of their business, or kind of once they're up and running and they've got a few issues and stuff going on? What's better?
It really comes down to the individual. So, for example, if you've got really strong marketing ability or really strong demand within your industry, you can kind of jump into an industry and be busy. So if you've got a high demand industry and you know what, I've done this as a self-employed person, I've had an entrepreneurial seizure, so to speak, I'm coming out and going out doing it on my own. As long as there's demand and as long as you've got, contacts that you can step into a business and start operating, then, you can start at that level without really any help. If you want to go beyond self-employment, if you want to take yourself out of the driver's seat as far as being on the tools go, that's the time really to get a business coach. Look, there's different levels for different people, and some people like instruction up front and they're able to go, right, based on my vision, I know straight out of the gate what I'm looking at. I want to go into this business to build it, to scale it, to franchise it, to whatever the language may be, create leverage in their life, while other people are more interested in being self-employed. And, either option is fine. It just really comes down to the individual. But time to get a business coach is when you decide, you know what, from here, we're going to get off the tools, and from here, we're going to build a leverage business.
Tina, have you used a business coach before?
I've had several over the years, yeah. I love working with coaches, and I've used different coaches for different areas of business. I've had a sales coach before. I've had a coach that specialises in agencies. I've had mindset coaches. I've had a coach that had a background in more of he had an accounting background. So it really has helped every single, I have never worked with a coach and it not kind of helped my business or me in some way. So I'm a huge advocate of, working with people to help guide you. I do some coaching as well. So I think it works really well depending on where you're at in your business, and what's that next step you need to get to that next level. And that may not always be the next level. It may not always be monetary. It may be, I want to take on another person and I've got no idea how I do that. Or I want to open in another location. And, Jason would be able to sort of attest to this. What I would be curious to ask, actually, Jason, just on the back of that question that Stuart asked you, is when people are like, do you find that when people are going from that self-employed to setting up, what are the common issues that they're sort of facing where they've got all this work coming in, and when I say self-employed, maybe they've got their accounting structures set up, okay, but more what are the problems that you're sort of helping people navigate? Be good to share
absolutely.
some of that.
I think it's a great question. So typically, and it's not obvious, it wasn't obvious when I first started coaching, but typically what it is they're too popular. And as strange as that sounds, because you're really good at your job, you become all things to all people. So your clients obviously want to spend time with you, they want to work one-on-one with you, then you build a team around you. So you're kind of going from a self-employed model where you know what works, and the harder you work, the more money you make, et cetera, the longer hours you do, the more consulting you do, or whatever it may be. So the problems that we help with is basically scaling that person out of the business. So maintaining relationships is one thing. So the psychology of like not losing the goodwill within the business, which is, maintaining culture and values and making sure that everyone is focused on the same goal. So as they bring people on, have we profiled them? We use a DISC behavioral profile to profile them, MTQ to test mental toughness, which is a mental toughness quotient test, and then the Thomas Kilmann model as well, the TKI model. So these models can give us the insight into people's behavior and their, personalities and things like that, even though it's more of a behavioral test than a personality test, the DISC behavioral profile test, as you'd be aware. So the best thing we do, or the biggest thing we do from the get-go, is actually maintain the quality as if the business owner was doing it themselves. And I think that's really important in coaching, because the reason that your clients are using you and the reason people are self-employed is because they are excellent at what they do. Typically, you don't find people stepping out of their industry to go into self-employment, or going from self-employment from a totally different genre. They most of the time they technically take their skills with them, and then they build a business around those skills. And because they're great, they get stuck.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
That's great. Yeah,
cool.
What Tina, did you say you said sales coach. Did you say you had like a mindset coach?
Yeah.
What was that like?
So I worked with them. Amazing. Literally doubled my business the year that I worked with that lady.
Wow.
It was a very expensive year invested, but it was definitely worth it. Because I think, and Jason would be able to talk to this, you've got your structures and you've got your sales and you've got your marketing and all the rest of it and recruiting, but it's the what's behind that, and really understanding what's behind that, and looking at things like your limiting beliefs, and where they pop up, and they pop up for all of us at different times. I had a client the other day. We were talking about some of her stuff, and she has got some limiting beliefs around money. So she's had not a great couple of months, even though her business is doing exceptionally well. And so, for her, she goes back to that. And so it's really just understanding, I guess, the stories that we tell ourselves, why we're telling them, and being able to kind of overcome that. I have personally found it so helpful to have that sort of support. Yeah. Do you guys do much around that, Jason? I know Jo, your lovely wife and business partner, does a lot around. She's into her mindset stuff as well, isn't she?
Absolutely, yeah. Look, it's the majority of the work, to be fair, because processes are really easy.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, human beings are human beings, so we all have different needs, different stories, and I think you raised a good point. The narrative is really important. So working through that narrative, and typically people will want to fit within a certain status within social communities or within peer groups and things like this. And the entrepreneurial journey is typically a really lonely journey. It's a journey of individualism where you've gone from having workmates and these types of things, or, you're building from a social circle where you easily fit into that group. And then as you become wealthier and as you gain more freedoms and start doing the things that people otherwise can't do, it can be a real temptation to stay at that fixed income, to still have that human needs, I guess you could say, the human, attachment. So it is a big thing. And imposter syndrome is also another thing that so many people face. And, it's only because they care, the fact that they question themselves so often. And, they're constantly checking in, constantly reflecting, but that can sometimes process in an overthought process, so they can get to a place of redundancy just through trying to do the right thing, but thinking, who am I to be this person, who am I to stand up and to say these things? So, a great remedy for that too, I believe, is networking, and we can all contest to that. I think being in a networking environment, having people around you, if you're a people-orientated person, we need that fix. We need the ability to have, not people to sell to, but I think of it like workmates. It's people that you hang out with once a week, or people you're catching up with and doing business, and sharing stories of, maybe not so great clients or fantastic clients or whatever it may be. But, all of that stuff, I think, can be remedied with mastermind groups, good peer groups that are constantly rising, and looking for more and extending their vision, wanting more out of life, training regularly. Yeah, as you say, look, the coach is one thing, and coaches can double your revenue, but you're only as good as the coachee or the person you work with. You can show someone the same information, but if they're not hungry for it, they won't double their business. Doesn't matter what the coach says. So I think it's a really powerful relationship to have that right, to have that mix right. And there's different coaches for different people. And, there's so many businesses out there and so many coaches. It really is a case of, if you click with someone, if it works, and fundamentally you get along as if you were friends, I think that's a really good start, because particularly with mindset stuff and coaching and psychology, it happens randomly. So it happens at 8 o'clock at night. It happens at, 4 a.m. It happens at all these random breakthrough moments. And as a coach, you need to be there for people. You need to be able to be there to walk them through the hard stuff or the letdown that employees have let them down with, because that's a common problem. And then, you give something your all just to be, totally disappointed in another area. And these types of, emotional setbacks or hardships and normal things to fail forward on, unless you've got someone to bounce that off, it can be a very lonely place. It can be a very hard place to come from. And so I think the mindset amongst anything is the most important thing, because you at your best, or you with your best self, can deal with more stress. You can handle more things. You can, build your business greater than what it is today, because you can cope, you can deal with it. And that's, I believe, the highest value of a coach is to sit beside someone like that and actually be there at all times. So you have to like each other. If you don't love your clients, if you don't love each other, fundamentally as workmates, you're not going to do the same work. You're not going to be there to see the things through that make the difference. You're only going to push across spreadsheets or push across information that's somewhat manufactured in a way, So flow charts and processes and systems, you can do that stuff automatically. You can say, build me a flow chart on Microsoft Teams, and you can build out whatever you want quite easily. So that side of the business, I think, is something people can handle, something that's quite easy. But psychology, as you said, the difference that coach made with you, I mean, the value of doubling your revenue in a year not only does that for your business, but for your self-confidence. It's like, I'm the kind of person that doubles my business. I did that in a year. What can I do next year? And double it again, and so I really believe in that kind of stuff. Absolutely.
It's really interesting. Like, as you say, I didn't really think of business coaches being sort of primarily mindset focused, but I guess that totally makes sense, because, if you go to the gym and you have a coach, a weightlifting coach, they're telling you what to do, but it's up to you to go and lift those weights, or they can't do it for you. I mean, maybe you can, as a business coach, Jason, you can provide a spreadsheet or a framework for doing X, Y, Z, but unless the business owner, your student, is actually implementing it and their mind is open to it, if you're giving them all these gold nuggets and telling them what to do, and then they just pay it off and go, whatever, they don't know my business as well as I do, it's going to go nowhere, is it?
Exactly. Yep, exactly right. And the interesting thing is, like Tina said, dealing with self-limiting beliefs, because a lot of people don't even realize they have them. They dress them up in excuses, and they dress them up in difficulties, and they dress them up in distancing goals and things like that, and never really, getting to that outcome. And those are people that we just can't work with. Typically you it doesn't matter what the business looks like. It doesn't matter what the system looks like. If people are fixed in the way that they want to do things and say they arrived at some level, that's fine. That's totally up to them. But that's, fundamentally the psychology of success or breaking through or being prepared to do the hard work. I think the mental conditioning just prepares you for the physical conditioning because, small business is staying up late. It's working 12 hours a day. It's doing all of these things. It's never having enough time. It's, all of these elements of stress that you don't get paid much. We all know what it takes to build a business, and you're on about 10 cents an hour, you really are, and that's just to get going. And then once you're going, then the problems come with people and then the, accountability measures and the scale and all of the difficulties in dealing with whether it's what we call a parent-child relationship, whether it's jealousy or envy, and all of these things are real things. They're human emotions that are tied up in corporations and business and all of these types of, organizations. But it's not something people as in business prepare for. It's not something that people turn around and go, I'm going to start a business. Let's learn about psychology. They go, I'm going to start a business. I need an accountant. Great place to start, though. Get an accountant first. And so, it really is that kind of unknown assistance. And I didn't even know that getting into coaching, to be fair. When I first started with my coach 15 years ago, I just didn't know what he was talking about. I was literally ignorant to everything he said. I need to know this fundamentally. And it was things like break even and margin formulas and, what marketing looks like and how to sell and what sales looks like ethically and, how to work with people and all of these types of things. So the benefit to that was actually it was all about psychology. It was all about limiting beliefs. It was all about breaking through the barriers and creating bigger vision.
How much of your job is just calling BS on people's excuses?
Not a lot, to be fair.
Okay. Oh, that's good.
Not a lot. Yeah. There's a process. So in working with people, it's a two-way street. You actually sit with people and you kind of interview each other and you sit there and you say, look, this is what level it takes to get this work done. So we'll happily sit with someone and draw a map and break it down and say, right, okay, let's go through it and we'll work with you. And people have individual needs within the same framework. So there's always some marketing needs or sales needs or people needs or, the framework doesn't really change from business to business. The clients do, the parameters might, but essentially people have problems within those problems. So we sit with people and actually structure that and then very honestly look at how the work looks and say, look, this is what's in front of us. This is what we've got to do. It requires 10 hours a week, or we're going to look at 5 hours a week, or we need leverage from the side. So starting with people like that, and then we sign agreements together and we both go in together. That's why we don't, I'm not a motivator. I'm not, so much, a motivation person like Tony Robbins and things like that. They bring the why and we kind of bring the what and the how. So, we work with people that are ready to get up in the morning and do the work, but we're just very honest in the approach. And that's why we don't have to call people on BS. Their employees are different.
Just a question. Have you ever had an experience where, and I know that Stuart and I have spoken about this before with clients where, they've engaged you and you both have the best of intentions, but it's not working out. And you can see quite clearly, maybe on your part, that you're sharing what they need to do and they're not actually going out and doing it. And it's quite obvious in a coaching environment, I think. Have you ever had that situation where someone's kind of gone, oh, you're a terrible coach because I haven't got the results? Have you ever had that over the years? No.
Well, look, not in that language as such, because I would probably be a little bit sad about that. But no, what typically happens is everyone gets to a plateau regardless. So, if you're reaching a plateau on month one, then we have issues. We have,
fair enough.
You know what I mean? So it really comes down to, again, that interview process where we sit with people. So that
vetting process and just making sure that they're ready to.
It has to be, because of that. Because, if say, for example, that was the case. And, we don't always get it right. We're not immune to such things.
Of course,
ultimately.
We're all human, right?
Exactly right. And clients, some clients stay for years and years. Our average, client retention is about 6 years. So
That's amazing.
We don't have contracts. We just work month to month,
Perfect,
so there's no lock-in terms or anything. So that's the typically the client that we work with. On the other side as well, it really just comes down to, if you take on the wrong clients, they're going to talk like that. They're going to turn around and say, you know what, it's not me, it's you. And this system you showed me,
shifting responsibility.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's too hard. And the sales system that you showed me, well, I can't do that. And the marketing stuff, well, I don't have time to do that.
Yeah, sure.
These are the types of excuses that people come out and say. So in the event that did happen, we, very early in the piece, we would say, look, we've agreed to 5 hours a week. You're not able to maintain the 5 hours a week. I don't think there's any point repeating ourselves every week.
Sure. Yeah.
And in that environment, you give someone a month's notice and you finish off.
Cut them loose.
As much as you possibly can. Do the right thing. Give them as much theory as possible and say, look, take the theory. This is 6 months worth of work, 12 months worth of work. This is how you roll it out. This is what this looks like. This is what this looks like. Try and leave them in the best possible situation, but in saying that, because, as you know, word of mouth is everything. Reputation is everything.
Absolutely. And I think, there's I see a lot in the coaching world, even with some of our clients over the years, where they've said, someone signed up to a program, and it might be 3 months, 6 months, whatever. It's not worked because they haven't done the work. And then they're finger pointing and going on social media and there's a little bit of that in that online coaching world. I know you work a lot with face-to-face clients. But no, I think you're right. I think it's all about that vetting process and making sure that you're working, you're aligned, you've got aligned values with the people that you're taking on. I would love to hear like a really good success story of like one of your clients. Like, what's your best client success story? I'm sure you've got lots.
Yeah. There's a few. Without sounding contrived, there's plenty. It's
always awkward giving yourself a pat on the back, isn't it?
Yeah, it kind of
you
feels
should.
like that.
I love hearing success stories.
Yeah, look, I do too, and I think success breeds success. So it's a great question as well. So I think ultimately, just going back to what you were saying as well on client selection, with coaching as well. If anyone's in sitting down with a coach or looking at coaching engagement and things like that, the main thing is coaching is not something someone should sell you, right? You don't sell coaching to someone. You don't sit down and try and pitch them on becoming successful. You don't try and pitch them on growing their business and all that kind of stuff, because when you're ready for coaching, you already want that. You're as a coachee, when you're looking for coaching, when the timing's right, you go, you know what? I'm really keen. I need to move from where I am from point A to point B. And so it's never a sell. And then the other side is that the filter that we use, just so you know, it's ownership, accountability, responsibility, or blame, excuse, denial. And that's kind of the context of engagement. So if people have ownership, they make accountability, and responsibility. So they're talking about taking problems on themselves. And this is, because of this, and this is because of this, and I need to overcome this, versus, my team is totally crap. The industry's too small, or they just deny there's a problem. It's everyone else around them that's a problem, not them. That's the actual context of the filter that we look at working with people. It doesn't matter what the business is, what level the business is at, anything like that. It's about that person. So it really is a people engagement.
So your vetting is almost what you've just described there is kind of almost assessing the client's view of the situation.
Yes.
Rather than the situation itself.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that's exactly right. Because it is that, and it is a thing that you have to put a lot of energy into. So if I don't do that correctly, you can spend a vast amount of energy, and return on energy is a two-way thing. Coachees or people that work with coaches and mentees, if they love what you do, if they're stoked to talk to you every week, if they can't wait to get stuck into their goals, you know what that does for a coach? That makes you so energized, and you can't wait to talk to them. And that coach will do anything for you, and they'll give you everything they've possibly got and overload you with stuff if you need it, be there to cheer you on and all those types of things, because of that reciprocal element to coaching. And that's why it's so important. It really is. I know I've said it in one form or another several times, but it really is, whether it's the timing to work with a coach, or whether you feel like that, or, engaging anyone in coaching, that's the precipice for it.
Can I ask?
You still haven't told us your success story.
Oh, yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so a really great thing I love working people with, working on with people is the bigger picture. And I know that sounds cliche, but it's more about like what's business for? It's a vehicle, to look after clients. It's a vehicle to make the world better. It's also a vehicle to create freedom for the business owner. So I'm all about creating the freedom. I love that kind of stuff. I love to see, a mum and dad style business go from mum and dad to a few others to a team to a leverage business that works without them. And that's kind of the whole point of what we do, is to
lifestyle
get them to
goals.
Lifestyle goals, to get them to a place of freedom. And client that I feel very dearly about, and obviously we feel dearly about every client, but one recently, they finished up with us a couple of years ago, and we did everything. We built out all the systems and processes, and it was a great engagement. We worked for about 2 or 3 years together on that particular project, and they sent me a video of themselves in a plane flying, and that was their life goal. It was something they always wanted to work on, something their entire life. And this was 2 years or so after we finished, just a random text message to say, hey, Jason, just thought I'd let you know, business works without me, everything's working well, and here I am, and that's why we do it. That's what I love,
I love that.
Whether it's, flying a plane or traveling or seeing your kids at sports day, whatever it is, that's what we love.
Love it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Can you, just to go back a step, Jason, when, a lot of small businesses are going to go from solo operator, like the plumber who's on the tools,
I'm laughing because we
always the plumber example.
Every week we use a plumber.
I'm just going to do it.
Great.
I'm just going to do it deliberately from now on.
I work with a plumber. They're a great business.
So the plumber who starts out, goes out on his own, goes and buys a truck. He's gone and doing the jobs, but then it grows bigger and bigger, and then at some point he has to make the transition to not being on the tools and being in the office or coordinating jobs or like whatever that next step is. What do you find is the biggest mental hurdle for people that are trying to make that transition from you being the guy that does all the work to being the overseer of other people?
So there's a couple of things. Firstly, it's dealing with the stress of that different dynamic. So when you're on the tools digging holes as a plumber, you know how fast you're going, you know what you're doing, you know the quality of your job, and you know all of these elements. And then you get an apprentice, and you know what the apprentice does. Not much, but you make them dig a lot of holes, right? And then so on and so forth. Fit off a few fittings and dig a few drains. When they're not there, the first thing that happens in a lot of cases is their phone rings all the time. So their team will call them, the clients will call them, or different project managers or whatever it may be on different jobs will be calling all the time. So it's working with them to really protect the time that they need to do deep level work. So quotes, for example, quotes sometimes go to the wayside, or they're very hard to keep up with the volumes of quotes, particularly in plumbing where there's high demand. There's a lot of work out there. So they've gone from a position where they'll do a job, get paid, put an invoice, do a job, get paid, do an invoice because they have a team of one, to now dealing with 3 jobs. Or now we're dealing with multiple jobs and we have multiple demands on our time. And then every time they get interrupted, it's proven it takes 27 minutes to get back to what we call flow state, when you're in flow, where you're working well, when you're responding well and getting stuff done. So picture that. 2 phone calls, you've added an hour of unproductive time to your day, or less productive than what you would have been. Now, if your phone rings twice in a day, you're lucky. It might ring 50 times, 60 times in a day. So therefore, just that, element of distraction, because they've got a successful business, because they're up, doing their thing, is enough to dishevel the productivity and put them behind the 8 ball. So that's when you sit with someone, you do the numbers, you show them these types of things, and you start saying, well, you can't be available between this time and this time. And here's where the phone should be diverted. And who else can do this process? And who can take the call on this? And when it comes to smaller quotes, how do you manage smaller quotes? Can we systemize that smaller quote? And then they grab different CRM software and they're able to start tabling things and putting charts together. Once you start putting charts together like an a la carte menu, people can start picking products and services rather than trying to do it manually. These are the types of things that in that case of a plumbing business that they would do at that point.
There you go. Wow, that was thorough.
That was very thorough. That was very thorough. So, Jason, how do you? I know that you. Well, I know you've got Joe in your business. I know that you guys both do some coaching within that. So, how does that work in terms of when you have clients sort of approaching you about coaching? Do you both sit down and speak to them, or do you kind of assess what they need as to who is going to best suit your coaching styles, or how does that work? I'm curious.
Yeah, it really is. Again, it comes down to that personal relationship. So, look, Joe's fantastic coaching, and she does like a lot of group coaching and workshops and things like that, where I'm more of a one-on-one type style coach.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it really depends on the needs of the client. You know, if they turn around and say, look, we need someone every single week, we want to be straight onto this, we want to grow exponentially, or they're growing exponentially, that's where they would sit with me. You know, and Joe might be more instructional around, 12-month programs, and, she does sales programs, marketing programs, delivery programs, leadership programs, these types of things, and work with people in that fashion. So we both kind of had an individual way that we like to work, and kind of provide different parts of the business too. So I'm not so good online. I don't do much of the group coaching stuff, do more workshops and face-to-face stuff. But again, it's for me, it really is about, sitting across with people and, sitting with them. And, I think body language has a lot to do with communication, but we know it's had a lot to do with communication. So I really feel that, when you sit with people every week and you're there beside them, it changes the dynamics of a relationship. And again, most of my clients, well, 99% of my clients are local. So that makes it easy too, because of working in, we know where their premises are, we know who they are and what they do and all these types of things. So that helps us with the intricacies of the business.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's great.
I did have some more questions, but we're at 32 minutes, so I'm not sure if that's going to drag on for too long. Should we
maybe chuck another one? Just chuck one more in.
Bonus question.
We can chuck another one. I've got to head off as well. I got that plumbing business I was telling you about at 2:00. I'm doing a leadership workshop. So from 2 to 3, I've got a plumbing business doing leadership. So that's why it's fresh in the mind.
That's so
all
funny.
Right, this is what they got to do. This.
Yeah. Well, okay. Let's talk about sales. Most business owners, myself included, not natural-born sales people, but in most businesses, there is a definite need for some element of sales. How do you find approaching business owners when it's identified that, hey, you're getting inquiries coming in? And I ask this because this is a scenario that we come across a lot in our agency, particularly because our job is to generate the leads, make the phone ring, and then very frequently it comes up that, hey, there's actually a lot of these qualified leads that should be paying you to do stuff, but things are getting botched on the phone or after it kind of enters their system. What's your experience there?
Absolutely. No, I think that's a great question, Stuart, because as yourself and Tina, you guys make the phone ring. You got a lot of stuff just to get the marketing coming in, all those leads coming in and things. And unless you are converting them, it's, again, no fault of the marketing company, but it's a really heavy loss when you're not converting leads, there, because you've done all that hard work, you've got the phone ringing, you're getting them keen. So it's a very good point. And again, starting a business, that's the last thing you think of. Typically when you open a business, you go, you know what? I'm going to open the doors and everyone's going to run in the front door. And then you sit there and you look at your watch, and you sit there, you keep looking at your watch. Or in my case, you start playing video games, but that's a totally different story. So when it comes to selling, I think the fundamentals are, don't try and sell anyone. I think trying to sell is off-putting, and a lot of people, whether it comes to, the quintessential car salesman from the 90s, we all have that kind of stereotypical idea of someone that's trying to stitch you up with a bad car. That's what it often feels like for people, through no fault of the business owner, but just in the fact that you're trying to convey your message. You really are just trying to be excited about what you're doing, but it can come across kind of over enthusiastic in a lot of cases. So really the biggest thing with sales, and we do a lot of sales training, but the biggest thing we find with sales is really ask enough questions in and around what someone wants. Why are they calling? What are they actually chasing? What are they after? And if you do your needs analysis properly and just really be genuinely interested in what they're looking for, then if you can provide that service and solve that problem, show them. So look, that's exactly what we do. Can I show you exactly how we do that? And give the person the opportunity to see how you solve that problem. Now, if we're looking at the case of the plumber, it's pretty obvious, so they go in and they don't need even much of a sales pitch at all. It really is just make sure that call is fielded, make sure that they're, doing the right thing, and make sure we can get there on time and be reliable for them. So we build trust. Ultimately, when it comes to anyone's, booking system or sales system, ask the questions. If you can't solve the problem or it's not something your business does, don't sell it. Don't, politely, move them to someone else that you may know that may be able to solve the problem, or be honest and upfront. So look, that's not actually something we do. For a lot of small business owners, that can feel kind of somewhat counterintuitive, where, we're like building a business, looking for cash flow, looking to grow things, trying to, make it through the day, and you've got to now turn around and tell a prospect you can't help them. It does feel confronting, but it's the best thing to do. So when it comes to sales, the idea of selling, I think, turn that into questioning. I think, if I have a really good written question process that either my admin person can take us through, or whoever answers the phone on a daily basis understands the right discovery questions, the rest of it's pretty straightforward, because then it's a demonstration of, well, that's exactly what we do, and here's how we do it. And then the prospect themselves will easily identify that. People are literally built like human lie detectors. We know when people are lying to us. We know when people are trying to convince us of ideas, and it's not only off-putting, but it's, disingenuous. So yeah. So when it comes to sales, I think everyone can breathe a sigh of relief. You don't have to learn these huge processes. You just genuinely be a good person, ask the right questions, agree on need, make sure that, there is that, and then demonstrate what you do. And if the prospect loves it, sales is easy. If people don't love it or you can't help them, it's easy too. So either way.
It's kind of almost like a dating coach or a matchmaker, where
is it Stuart?
Well, that's what I stay with me.
Okay.
Well, you got someone who's interested in this service, you provide that service, and it's a matter of, like I said, asking questions to see if what they're after matches up with what you provide. And
yes.
If it doesn't, then, well, it happens to us sometimes where we go, hey, look, that's what you're after is not quite up our alley. You should speak to Tina. She does more of that stuff. Yeah. So handball, and Tina's done the same vice versa to us.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, like you said, you just be a good person. If what you're offering doesn't match up, then you're better off
just say so.
Just being honest, because man, you make so much more headaches for yourself trying to sell something that is a bad fit. Horrible.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think it's something that a lot of businesses do as well. Like when they first get started, you go, yeah, okay, we'll take it on and we'll try and figure it out. And then you figure it out and you figure out it's really hard and you don't want to do it anymore. And then you never offer.
Never, ever again.
You never say yes again to that particular service or whatever it may be. For us, it's websites. But anyway.
Really. Know your avatar,
cool.
people. Know your avatar.
100%. Well, we're at 39 minutes, so that's pretty good. Little bonus question there. So let's finish up. That's about all we've got time for today. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to the podcast again. Remember, you can always follow along on your favorite podcast platform. Chances are we are there. Obviously, I want to thank Jason for joining us today. Thanks very much, mate. It was a really good session. I really liked it.
Thank you, guys.
And
my pleasure.
Tina, as always, thank you for co-hosting. I think you made this episode way better than if it was just me.
Okay. Thank you. It's because I talked too much and didn't let you get a word in edgeways. But thanks for having me, and thanks for coming on, Jason. It's great for you to share that info with our listeners, and hopefully they've all taken something out of it as well. If they're curious about business coaching, then obviously reach out to Jason, guys.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So thanks again, everyone, for tuning in, and we will see you next week on Launchpad.